All right, inside prediction markets, remote week. We've got Chris is on the OpticOdds hot seat somewhere in Florida where it's literally very hot. He's on
That
vacation.
is true. That is true.
All right. We also have to keep stuff in the chamber because I don't know if we even asked on here. We said it on Twitter. We're going to do the show at Bet Bash. So you and I are going to be at Bet Bash. We're talking to Pads, which is going to be awesome. I want to start off with this story that came out today that a judge has banned Kalshi from offering sports contracts in Michigan unless they get a sports betting operator license. And they've been ordered to pay $120,000 every day if they don't comply. I saw a screenshot going around from somebody showing that they were in Michigan and that they were no longer allowed to access the sports markets. It could be fake news, but I believe they've actually started enforcing this today, the geolocation on Michigan. Um, Michigan is also one of these states, like many states, where you have to pay millions of dollars to a in-state casino to get an OSB license, who then provides you very little. Um, so it's a total pound of flesh situation. Um, some of the guys like Daniel Wallach, are tracking a lot of these decisions. A lot of these state decisions have gone against Kalshi so far, um, but I don't know that the state level is even where all of this in the terminal state gets settled. But Chris, first reactions to the story out of Michigan today.
Well, the first reaction is honestly, is it worth $120,000 to just not comply? I, I at first I thought maybe it was worth it, which would be pretty funny, but now I don't think it is after sitting there with like digesting the math a little bit. And I think your point is correct. It's just like this is obviously ending up to the Supreme Court, and eventually it's gonna be all 50 or nothing. Like these like states going after it, it's completely irrelevant. It's just like you'd spend all those resources, and then true American hero and patriot Michael Seelig is backing the PMs and making sure that the CFTC's rightful authority is upheld. But eventually, this is going to get ruled on, and I don't know what the results are going to be.
Yeah. For guys like us, we're obviously laser focused on sports, and 80+% of the volume is in sports. Um, but Kalshi obviously has dreams of one day being the giga marketplace where everything you could ever dream of trades, and sports being a very small piece of that, or maybe in in the final stages not even being part of it at all. So I mean, obviously they're going to fight for the right to offer everything they can, right? It's a business need and whatnot. But I wonder if there's a little part of them that says, this is probably going to be part of our journey, is having to sacrifice sports in some places in order to build the larger vision. I don't think the time is there yet for that because the volume is so important, the fee revenue is so important. But I think
I just
about that when I see these stories.
if you can't do sports, I don't think non-sports will have the mainstream effect that they hope. But maybe I'm mistaken.
Sure, but they're betting otherwise. But I think they have to take a long time
Wait, are they
horizon on
betting
something like that
otherwise or
happening.
predicting otherwise?
I think they're literally betting otherwise. I think this is
Yeah,
a lowercase b bet they're placing.
fair.
Yeah. Um it I won't comment too much on what an OSB license is, but it's so frustrating just knowing, having tried to go a regulated route, like you literally can't offer an exchange with an OSB license. Like it's just not a real thing. They haven't allowed for it anywhere. And yeah, I I'm such a bought in true believer that every once in a while I'm reminded, like, oh, this could all blow up, and that would be horrible. I just would not like to see things go that way.
Another thing I saw in the news this week was uh Malik Beasley getting like confirmed, caught for I guess insider trading or insider gambling, or I mean rigging games, all of the above. I mean, and for tens of thousands of dollars is what I'm reading. Like I These is just I just
Small,
do
to
not.
be clear, small amounts is what you're getting at, right?
Yeah,
Relative to the risk. Yeah.
yeah, yes. Tens of thousands of dollars is a lot of money to most people, but to Malik Beasley, let me look it up real quick. Like Malik Beasley contracts. I mean, he might.
I think he was making 30 million his last year.
He was? No, he wasn't. He had a 3-year, $42 million deal, or
That's what it is. Okay.
something like that. Or I mean, yeah, it's 60 million in career earnings. I mean, this is to do that all. Even if you figure after taxes and agent fees, he's cleared 30 and he's blown half of it. I just don't understand. Like, why are you? It's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. So the story is that he gets in debt gambling, um, and then Ed Davis picks up the debt and directs him to start throwing, not throwing games, but like he was shaving props and even just playing spreads on his team, but like forcing end of game buckets to cover spreads. Like very coordinated, like, oh, I'm gonna go over on assists, under on rebounds kind of stuff. Um, but again, for small amounts, I mean, I guess you if you have virtual known outcomes on tons of stat lines, it can add up. But they have text from him being like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to get 2 grand together to do such and such." Like, how did you not have access to $2,000? That's crazy. And
I
and
just
what mechanisms do the teams have in place to it? It's like somebody is extremely compromised if they don't have $2,000, then they're on an NBA team. Like I don't know. They need some checks in place to catch things like that.
yeah. I mean, I also saw a Twitter post. It was like I saw Kirk Evans tweet. It's just like he took a screenshot of like a prop market of Malik Beasley because he thought it looked so suspicious, and he says like, I remembered it, and he like tweeted about this like 7 months ago or something like that, and then now it got reposted
Yeah.
where it's like he was right. I mean, another thing I want to talk a little bit about like, oh, people say, oh, this is all because of regulated OSB or PMs or whatever, and I think that is completely wrong and misunderstood. It You and I can both look at the market and tell you something is like 98% plus to be rigged, and with just looking at like money movement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard to figure out if there's rigging or not. And then so all it's done is it's made it obvious and easier to catch. Like it was still happening in like the olden days, and it was just like bookies in Nevada where all you could, or offshore is all you could bet. Now it's just like it's really easy to catch it, and I don't know why people make think it's so hard to catch. It's just like you cannot hide this money. Like if basically steams like 500 cents on his player prop, okay, like it's pretty obvious what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think in the pre-PASPA era, there were less idiots around you who would have the idea to do point shaving because your average person didn't really know where to bet a significant amount of money. Like if you bet on sports in 2012, you probably had a local bookie and a credit line with them, but you did not necessarily have the means to repeatedly fire tens of thousands of dollars into rigged games. Now, somebody who's really in it would, but not like all your dimwit friends would know how to do that. So I feel like OSB probably surfaced that a little bit. And then the other thing about OSB is it's opaque, right? There's like Evan can look at or Kirk can look at line movement and say this doesn't make sense, or look at where it closed and be like this is kind of weird, and my numbers say I should bet it, but based on the live movement I'm not going to because it looks fishy. But with PMs you could actually see a lot more about what really happened in the marketplace, and the venues are more obligated to follow up on activity and a little more motivated to than the sports books are. um So I do feel like ultimately PMs will be better for catching this kind of stuff. The problem is like a fair amount of stupidity motivates it, right? Like, so it doesn't matter if you're perfect at catching it. You're still going to have people who make the mistake of attempting it. My question for you is, I would assume that you, like me, think that players in Major League Sports point shaving or rigging props is pretty rare and limited, um, but not completely non-existent. And I wonder if your kind of internal gauge of how much it happens updates based on this story. Like, does this make you feel like, oh, maybe it's a little more pernicious than I thought? Or is this kind of like, yeah, this is about the floor? I think there's a couple random guys making a terrible mistake each year, and that's about it over a small sample of games.
I will admit I am updated to think that's a little bit more than I was initially suspecting, because I would like the Michael Porter Jr. case, or not Michael Porter Jr.
Dante
Sorry,
Porter.
Jonte Porter, definitely not Michael
Yeah.
Porter. Jonte Porter, that I understand. It's like Jonte likely out of the league in a year or two. It was for big
No
money,
money.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for
he,
big
he
money.
doesn't have any money. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Malik Beasley, I am like, wow, did not expect that. Like, did not expect that one to come. So maybe there is some guys that are like, and I think we saw from like pitchers throwing their first ball or first strike that were like, it was like, whoa, that was shocking. And like they had some million dollar deals. It's like, wow, I can't believe they did it for that little money. So maybe that's a little bad. Um, and then we, I mean, everyone's heard about the college teams like rigging games and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that always is going to happen. I would still think it's some. My guess is it's happening to like 3 to 7 teams a year, spread across all sports and leagues, and then maybe like 2x that in players and just specific player props. Like it's unclear to me if Malik Beasley was like throwing games or just rigging his props. I don't like which does have a difference in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, you're not supposed to do any of it. Um, Throwing games is really bad though, for sure. If somebody's, missing shots on purpose, it's really bad. And that's the thing with like even with anything that changes the way you behave on the court is not good,
Of
right?
course,
Like,
of course.
yeah, and so that it is, I think it does just highlight that even if the math says, oh, we've set up the incentives such that this shouldn't happen, because right, there are general principles. Even this sort of naturally happens, right? A market maker is going to avoid offering liquidity that is irresponsible given the stakes for the players themselves, right? Like you wouldn't quote uh, a Mary Mac basketball total for an insane amount of money and book infinite on it, in part because it's like the incentives are not there for this to be a truly honest game in that kind of regime. That's part of why those limits are where they are.
Yeah,
Um, like that's supposed to be a kind of self-correcting
yeah.
mechanism, but
And that's
it doesn't price in like this just little bit of randomness of like people just doing things that you cannot explain.
it's funny you mentioned that because it's like if you think about it with player props, it's the same thing. It's just like, do I want to quote a backup player's player props for huge? No, part of it is that. Would I have a problem having a $10 million position if our bankroll allowed it on LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Giannis? Yes, absolutely. They are just not rigging it. Like that's just like that would be. I can't even fathom a world where they are rigging games like
Yeah.
that.
Now, I think also this stuff people care about sports, so it really comes under a lens. There was a story today that SIG lost $70 million on insider trading on like Japanese equity or Chinese equity brokers, like insider traders buying deep out of the money calls and crushing them. They're suing 100 John Does. They don't even know who they're suing, or maybe they know who they're suing, but we don't know. It's an ugly affair. But I, you know, the scale of what's possible in TradFi is so much worse, right? Like nobody's gonna lose $70 million on point chafing on a single basketball game.
I mean,
'Cause
I mean, the question I would have is 70 million a closer equivalent to like it might be the equivalent of losing like 500,000 or even less than that in like a point shaving thing. Like 70 million is just not that much money when you're referring to like the SIGs of the world in like like yeah, it sounds like a lot, but for TradFi it's really kind of not.
I would assume naively that it's about the upper limit of what the buyers could do without tripping real alarms prior to settlement, right? It's any more than this, and the SEC might get involved before we even are able to sell out of the position. Um, but yeah, I mean, the thing is that like that story came out, everybody's kind of making fun of SIG, like oh, you thought of, you're selling options. Like people always root for them to lose. Where it's like, dude, you really do not need to be rooting for Chinese insiders who are like playing dirty in the stock market. But that's the thing though, is that because it doesn't reflect on anything that people are actually invested in emotionally, they kind of don't care relative to the scale. But that these things are possible everywhere.
I know it sounds like we're biased, but it's like if the market makers can't feel comfortable doing stuff like this, it actually is worse for everyone. Like liquidity dries up, volume dries up, exchange both in TradFi and in sports. So it's
Yeah,
like I mean market makers are people too. They matter.
they matter. And the laws are there, right? Like if you said no, this is actually legal, it's like okay, fine, but no, the law is there, so like you need to enforce it, and hopefully they get their money back. Shout out Jeff Yastin. I hope you get your money back, Jeff. Um, the next thing that I just wanted to touch base on is World Cup activity on PMs. Perhaps not surprisingly, but obviously ripping. Like Kalshi was peaking, biggest weeks ever. We and Novig, we did our biggest week ever recently, biggest month ever. Um, I know the World Cup is a big deal, but it's also soccer. I did not expect this much volume in the American market on these World Cup matches. I've been
I
pleasantly surprised.
I was shocked. I was telling someone these like soccer's useless, and then now I see this all these numbers and I can't believe it. And it's just like it's so funny how everyone is on the like every single sharp or market maker is in the same thing. It's like, okay, please, Holland, Mbappe, Messi, don't score goals. Please,
Yeah,
Argentina, France, no, lose your games. USA, please lose. And, draws in regulation time is great. And it's just hilarious how this all works out. I'm wondering what like August is going to be like. I think August, there's nothing going on August other than the MLB, which is
August is super dead for sure.
yeah. And then I mean this September, I think everyone's gonna be mind blown with I mean, there's a lot more PM competition this year. Market makers have had a full year to prepare for this. I think it's going to be extremely competitive and deep. I would not be okay. Here's a prediction I have for September. I would not be surprised if in a regular season game you could get down at like last hour before post, if you assume the DVIG fair is plus 100 on a spread or money line or whatever, you could get down at some point during the regular season 50 million at 3% worse than that. So minus 6. I think that's how deep and tight they're going to get, which is like, it sounds crazy, but I think you're going to get to that point. I'm not saying I want to
That
bet
gets
50 million to be clear. I'm just saying, like, I think in theory you
I
could.
would love to bet 50 million on a game this year, but I don't think we're going to do that. But this brings me to an interesting question, and something I think we've seen come during the World Cup. There have been a lot of World Cup matches where the price on prediction markets really moves towards the favorite or the very public side late, um, in a way that, look, I'm not a soccer sharp, but I think reflects just an immense amount of buying pressure from retail rather than um, price discovery in the sense that, like, I mean, everything's price discovery, right? But that maybe that line is actually less accurate than where the line was 2 hours before the match starts. Um, and that's going to happen when, on a PM, every trade has to be fully collateralized, right? You can only write as much action as you're bankrolled for. And there is a cap on how much risk the MMs can take on. And it does feel like temporarily for these super tentpole matches, the retail demand outstrips the supply a little bit. Um, and that'll be interesting because it's not that easy, as you and I both know, to rustle up another $50 million to gamble with on a single NFL game. And if every PM continues to crush on customer acquisition and marketing and driving users to their platforms, and they and market maker onboarding and liquidity onboarding doesn't keep up, you might start seeing a continued pattern of just insane price pressure on some of these major games. And so that's a thing to look out for as we get into NFL season, especially the early weeks of it.
Uh, that's I hear your point, but at the end of the day, I think people like quickly forget like how rich some of the best sharps are. Like I mean, you know, Star Lizard, Harlebomb, these are guys that have made nine figures and have teams of people they could snap their fingers and get like backing for like probably a billion and stuff like that. And if they just haven't had to because this hasn't happened ever before. And I have to think that eventually there's going to be more people that are like, yeah. Instead of keeping
Oh
like
yeah.
hundreds of millions in the stock market and whatnot, because you can't literally get down huge size. Okay, now you can. Let's transition it over, and then now, let's just keep gobbling up these like 3 or 4%, 5% edges, and just rolling it over every NFL game or every World Cup game, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't. I think this is going to be short lived because I think the sharps are
Yeah,
only in
for
it
sure, for
for the
sure.
term. Yeah.
But that's the nature of the business, right? Is that the edges are always short lived. You always reach equilibrium, and then something else disrupts equilibrium, and you rush to fill in the gap, right? That's kind of, we're in the business of doing that, of rushing to fill in gaps, so to speak. And I think part of what will drive that, and this will maybe we'll kind of close just talking about a few of these other venues that are coming online. We just saw DKX, which is Draftkings, wholly owned DCM, has launched. I don't think that really changes the DK predictions experience too much to start, but it's going in the direction of they have a lot more control over supporting the prediction program. Rothera, which is the Robinhood venue, is starting to self-certify contracts. So there are some primo name brands that are launching their own exchanges that I think that's going to create diluted equity, right? Like if if they're all rushing to bring in market makers, right? It's just more and more surface area to cover, and what happens in the wake of that, I think, is kind of interesting.
Well, I would really love to get I mean, at least my dear friend, Matt Kalish's opinion on this. I mean, will DraftKings get these dirty Wall Street market makers on DKX? And I mean,
No, DKX is a guarantee that you can bet $1,000 on any golfer outright with zero slippage, no matter what's going on.
it you know, it
Just
is
just
funny.
like on regular DraftKings, Chris.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was funny to see him the first like week, I thoroughly enjoyed him. I was like, okay, he's actually like spitting some facts here. It's cool. But at this point, it's so clear that it's just him raging that Kalshi's doing really well, and it's negatively impacting his like bottom line and Draftkings bottom line. So it's just like very funny to see it's going on because I haven't seen him comment on his own exchange, and like I haven't seen that comment yet where it's they're doing all the things he's hating on Kalshi for. It's just like whatever. I don't mean to talk about Matt Kalish on that, but it's just funny to see.
There's never a bad time to talk about Matt Kalish. Um, my closing question to you: rumors that Kalshi is raising at 40 billion right now. Would you write a check into Kalshi at 40 billion?
I would not. Would not.
Okay,
Um,
I would.
I you would.
Yeah,
So okay. As you know, I've built my entire career off of being very price sensitive. Obviously, um, the my thought process is this: I think Kalshi at 22 is a buy. Um, when you get to 30, I think it's close to break even, and I'm getting 30 at kind of what like I think peak FanDuel and DK were around that 30 is how I'm getting that. And yes, the thing is like they have stronger competition because they have DK and FanDuel, but they also have the other angle where it's like non-sports products, and they also have states that weren't previously allowed and with FanDuel and DK. So I'm kind of thinking 30 is fair value. That being said, if Supreme Court ruled on it and said that you can offer sports contracts in all 50 states and it's rock solid, I would be a buyer at 40. So if someone has a stronger take than me on it and thinks the Supreme Court is well above like 75%, then absolutely like you should be a buyer. But I just can't get there. I think there's too much randomness in it, which is why I'd be a buyer at 22. The current what their last raise was, I think fair is around 30. 40 seems a bit high to me. Why are you a buyer at 40? Feel like you're just vibes based. You're like, I want everything to rip.
well, I think are are you a CLV truther or not?
I am. I am.
Yeah. So if I told you that Billy Walters was playing the Seahawks and he put $5 million on it and he moved the line a point, would you play the Seahawks at the same line that he played?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if somebody who had a fraction of the role that Billy Walters had said, I don't really like that, I actually like the Patriots at that number, how much stock would you put in their opinion?
Zero.
Yeah. So assuming, Kotu led the last round at Kalshi. Kotu has 70 billion under management. Uh, they did Anthropic,
This is a
Databricks.
weak example, and you know it. You know it
I
because
I
there's.
think you can't. I think you can't be a CLV truther and then also say the best VC funds on earth don't know what they're doing.
But the thing is, it's like it's like the winner's curse, adverse selection. It's like the VC that wins is is the one that paid the most, right? Like and stuff like that, and also like in finance, like good like why isn't like every single VC fund like back or maybe they are and I don't know and it's like I don't think that like every single VC fund wants to back them at 40. So clearly the market
I
is
think. Well, what I think once the way VC works is once you have a lead that's like a top five lead, like if it's an Andreessen or a Kotu or whatever, everybody wants to get in the round or whatever the price is. So you have very few venture funds who are willing to stick their neck out and lead around at a big number. Um, and then basically a bunch of top down VC funds who, once they know you have a lead, will be like, is there any room for me on the cap table in this round? And so honestly, like it does map kind of well. It literally works
Yeah.
very similarly to the way sports work. Um, there, I think domain knowledge does count for something, right? Like, I think it's not crazy to say that you or I know more about prediction markets than one of the most successful venture capitalists in the world, but they know a lot more about just about everything else,
Well,
if that
yeah, I
makes
mean, it's
sense.
like the
Yeah.
specialty. It's like they're investing in tons of different industries. We're specialized in one. Like, I'm not saying we're smarter than them. I'm saying at the one field that we're best at, we might be better than the.
Yes. Yeah. And everything, eh, once numbers get big, everything looks so scary, right? Like we were talking about how 10 billion was a crazy valuation for Poly and Kalshi less than a year ago. And I think everybody wishes they got on a 10 billion cap table. Maybe not for Poly market, but certainly for Kalshi.
I mean, Kalshi has smashed expectation. I mean, they've done a fantastic job. It's hard to hate on them. Everything they've done has been pretty elite at this point.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who passed on Anthropic the whole way up too, or several steps of the way up too. Because all the AI, Anthropic and OpenAI at every step of the way have been valued as though there was a possibility that they might be the last companies that ever exist, right? That AI might literally take over the entire world. And that just leads to insane valuations. But everybody who passed on those deals looks back and is like, Jesus Christ, like, what were we thinking? So, all right. I think that'll wrap us up for this week. Enjoy your time in Florida.
Thank you. I will.